I want to start with something that's on the mind of a lot of people here, especially those that live on this continent. Why does the United States need Greenland?
I think for the World Economic Forum to be focused on that sort of misses the big picture, which is that the model of the global and the globalist system has really failed the United States and failed the West, right? The industrialization, the deindustrialization of the United States and the globalist view that you should find the lowest cost labor somewhere in the world and move production to the lowest cost labor, and you should take all of your workers and just unemploy them all, and rip them off is just the wrong model. So I think the world of the WEF and the way it thought and the way it acted was just not in America's interest. And in my opinion, it wasn't in the West's interest. It wasn't in Europe's interest. It wasn't in the UK's interest either. The way I always thought of the WEF was it wasn't the pole in the middle like a flagpole. It was the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so blew the WEF.
The World Economic Forum.
The World Economic Forum is the WEF, right? The way the wind blew, so blew the World Economic Forum. That would be the topic of the year. And think about this for a minute. Europe says it wants to be net zero by 2030, and they don't make a battery. They don't make a battery. So how are they going to be net zero unless they decide Europe, the great continent of Europe, is going to be completely subservient to the Chinese who make batteries, right? This is just black and white. It just doesn't make sense. So if you want just the quick topic of Greenland, I would say it this way. The Western Hemisphere is fundamental to the health and national security of the United States of America. Our national security people are on it. But I would say to make America strong, we need to have a strong Western Hemisphere. And the world needs a strong America. Think about this. America set out to do tariffs on the world. And everyone said it would destroy the rest of the world. Europe's stock market, way up. UK stock market, way up. Japan, way up. Korea, way up. Why are they all up? Because when America shines, the world shines. Because everybody who invests in the world understands a strong America is vital for the world that we all live in.
Well, I want to get to that in a second, but to Greenland first, because whether you like it or not, you're going to get questions about this week from everyone here. 7 in 10 Americans back home don't want this. Don't want a dime of federal taxpayer dollars spent to buy it. Don't want to see troops positioned there. What do you say to those 7 in 10 Americans who don't agree with the president's push to take over Greenland?
Donald Trump has the best intuition of anybody that I've ever met, and he by far is the best person ever to sit in the Oval Office. He understands things, he does it by intuition, he does it by knowledge, and he does it by experience. So if the President of the United States thinks for national security, the Western Hemisphere is fundamental, I promise you, in maybe a year, maybe in 2 years, and maybe in 5 years, every historian will be writing about how fundamentally right he was. I mean, think about April 2nd, how the world was saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this whole tariff thing, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. It is so fundamentally right, and you can ask everybody. Did it cause inflation? No. Did it make America stronger? Yes. Did the world stock markets go up? Yes. He was completely correct. So my view is, I bet on Donald Trump every time, because anybody who's ever bet against him has been wrong.
And you've known him for years, and you know there are a lot of people sitting on this side of the world going, this doesn't make any sense. We've got to try to convince him otherwise. You know him. You know that when he gets an idea.
Who has to convince him otherwise? Why?
Europeans,
who are these people?
The Europeans are trying. You know
and
they're
why?
trying. Because they don't think that the United States should be taking Danish territory.
They haven't thought about it at all. I think they will think about it more and they will address it. But basically, I'm going to leave that to my national security people to address it with the Europeans, right? You can have disagreements with your friends and allies. You can. And then eventually it'll sort its way out. But I'm going to leave it to them. I am the Commerce Secretary, so let's try to stick to commerce.
And I want to talk about that because this has sparked now talk of a big retaliatory tariff from the EU on the US, $100 billion potentially. That has the potential to affect prices on many different things that get bought and sold into the United States. two things on that. One, what is the status of the US-EU trade deal? And does this bazooka tariff, I guess is what they call it, have the potential to upend that agreement?
My opinion is the trade deal that the European Union made with the United States of America is durable. They do not want their auto tariffs to go higher. They do not want their pharmaceutical tariffs to go higher. They do not want their semiconductor tariffs to go higher. They just do not. So I think the trade deal with them, the trade deal with the UK, these are durable. They are going to stay. The two sides will talk, and they will discuss it together. And ultimately, I think they will work out a solution, and diplomacy will prevail. However, Donald Trump has a clear understanding of his goals and objectives, and everybody will talk together, and they will work it out, or they won't. But I'm going to leave that to national security. But my view is, I do not think economically Europe wants to change the deal they cut between Ursula von der Leyen, Madam President, and Donald Trump. So I just don't think that's going to change.
At this point, you see it going through.
What does that mean?
The US-EU deal. The trade deal that's been worked out, that you've been working on, will be fulfilled. It won't be upended by this.
I do not think that there is going to be an upending of any of the trade deals that we have made. There are things that we will argue about between our two countries, for sure, because that's the way it works with friends and allies. But I would say Donald J. Trump understands what he wants, and he will talk to them, and they will work it out. And I think the EU trade deal is solid, firm, and will continue.
You got the Taiwan deal last week. Who's next?
Well, what we have is from Japan, $550 billion. You have Korea, $200 billion, right? And we can use that for power in America. We've got $150 billion from the Koreans to do shipbuilding, right? And then we've got $500 billion, two classes of $250 billion from Taiwan. Plus we had all the deals that I did separately, like we had Micron agreeing to build $200 billion in America. We've got $1 trillion of semiconductors to build in America. So what we are going to do is we are going to reshore semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, over 250 billion pharmaceuticals coming in, power. We're going to build 100 gigawatts of power for $750 billion in America, and we're going to drive the cost of energy in America down. We're going to win the AI race, produce the power, and we're going to reduce the cost of electricity in America.
But the whole 180 deals in 180 days, you have maybe, 24 or so far. Who's next? What's the next big country you got to finish a trade deal with?
Well, I leave deals for the future in the future, but those are the big ones that I was focused on, and I'm excited about executing a plan of $1.5 trillion of domestic production, right? This is domestic production. Donald Trump has said he's got $18 trillion coming to America. What that means is manufacturing is going to explode. You've seen manufacturing numbers that were weak. That's because housing is weak, because interest rates are too darn high, and we all know it. So when interest rates come down, housing starts and housing construction will grow. But what you're going to see at all of 26, you're going to start to see construction of factories, huge factories. Friday, I went to a groundbreaking of a $100 billion factory. That's a $100 billion factory, 25,000 jobs in upstate New York. And the full Micron $200 billion investment will produce 90,000 jobs in America. Construction to start, and then ultimately high-tech jobs, the best kind of jobs for America.
You are confident in the use of tariffs. You know, though, that the Supreme Court could rule any day now and upend the tariff plan, claiming it's unconstitutional or restricted in some way. What's the backup plan if that happens?
Look, I think the Supreme Court is going to side with Donald Trump and the president and give him the power to do and run the country as best for national emergencies, as you've seen with IEEPA. However, the trade deals that we have made, right, they're autos, they're semiconductors, they're pharmaceuticals, those things are not in front of the Supreme Court. So I do not think the European deal, the UK deal, the Tokyo, the Japanese deal, the Korean deal, the Taiwan deal, none of these things are going to change. So the big deals that President Trump has made are going to be durable through that. But I do think it is fundamental that the Supreme Court is going to decide positively for the tariff case. And I think that whenever that comes down, you're going to see President Trump very successful in that.
If they disappoint you and him and rule the other way, though, you've seen companies say, look, we've been paying all this extra money now because of tariffs on the imports that we're trying to bring in. Is there a plan to refund them should the Supreme Court reverse the tariff plan and say you can't do that?
The administration will follow what the Supreme Court says. We have no idea what they're going to say. We'll wait to then, right? Could it be if they said, refund people, that'd be an unholy mess? And they even discussed that and they used the word, the Supreme Court justices used the word mess while they were discussing it in the courtroom when we had the case. So let's wait and see what happens. I sat in that courtroom and I felt that we were a winner, that Donald Trump's IEEPA tariffs are going to be stable, they're going to stay, and the Supreme Court of the United States is going to let the one person elected by the people of the United States of America run the foreign policy of the United States of America.
Talking to people who are attending, looking at some of the reports that are done before this week began, there's a lot of concern among business executives around the world about geopolitical instability and their inability to plan ahead because of it. Capturing Maduro, which the world generally agrees was a good thing to extract him from Venezuela, is one example of a sudden disruption and change that suddenly opens up a market. Threatening to take Greenland, though, obviously preoccupies Europe and shows that the president's focused on those kinds of things as well. What do you say to these business executives who say all this geopolitical instability, much of it driven by the United States, is making it hard for us to plan ahead?
Let's do a flashback to April 2nd, 2025, right? All the press, all these businesses, right? Oh, hair on fire, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Let's look at the end of 2025, right? The United States stock market up, trade deficit down, exports up, right? Imports down, our deficit down. How about the UK? Stock market up big. How about Europe? Stock market up big. How about Japan? Stock market up big. How about Korea? Stock market up big. All of that noise fades away. And now you're going to tell me these things, which pale in comparison, are something that's going to change the outlook? Let me give you a hint. The U.S. government and our U.S. GDP grew 4.3% in the third quarter. The shutdown's going to mess with the fourth quarter. But now we're in the first quarter of 2026. I think we're going to grow over 5%. And I think businesses in America are excited to invest in America and are coming in gangbusters to America. I think that kind of talk of worry is not actually going to show its way to groundbreakings, hiring, and growth in America. I think over 5%. And if we finally cut interest rates, because remember, the United States is the greatest credit in the world. Why are we paying the highest rates? If we're the greatest credit, I mean, the probability of the United States paying you back is better than any other country in the world. Why are we paying the highest rates when we have low inflation? And the answer is when those rates come down, you're going to see growth in the United States to hit 6%. And all these companies, what they're going to be saying is, the U.S. economy is so amazing, that U.S. consumer is so amazing, there's no place that I'd rather invest my dollars for a good return than America.
Is an investigation of the Federal Reserve Chairman good for Wall Street?
The facts of these kind of matters I'll leave to others, right? The fact is the President of the United States will choose a new Fed chairman, and that new Fed chairman with the other governors will set the rate of interest rates in the United States of America. And the President has made it crystal clear they should be lower. We're the greatest credit in the world. The rates should be lower.
But let me ask it again. Is it bad for Wall Street to have the Federal Reserve Chairman under investigation?
If he's done something wrong, he's done something wrong. The answer is his term is coming due in a couple of months. There'll be a new Fed chairman, and hopefully rates will come down.
How about the idea of a lawsuit against Jamie Dimon? You think that's a good idea? The president's talking about investigating him.
Actions of companies against the president is between the president and those companies, right? I am the Secretary of Commerce. I'm going to stay deeply in my lane, which is the growth of the United States of America is going to be over 5% in the first quarter, in my opinion, because of the policies of the Trump administration, which are the most pro-business policies of any president ever. And my advice to Europe and my advice to the UK is watch what he does and try copying it. Try copying the digital model the United States has. I mean, it's got $6 trillion of data center commitments. Why not, instead of attacking our tech companies, why not embrace them and let them build in your country and reap the benefits, not of just taxing them and fining them and attacking them, but rather let them produce job growth in your country. Watch America succeed. And maybe, just maybe, our allies will figure out, hey, that's a good way to go instead of windmills and the wrong way to go.
Two real quick things that touch the American consumer back home. First off, the TikTok deal. Is it closing on Friday as scheduled?
I don't know.
So we should anticipate another extension?
No, I literally, I'm not up on whether the TikTok deal is closing on Friday. I just don't know.
The kids are worried, they've been wondering. So
it's been good so far, and I think they've worked out a deal. So I'm pretty optimistic.
Housing was allegedly going to be a big part of what the president's talking about this week in his speech here on affordability in the economy. There's this talk, I guess, of dipping into your 401k for a one-time down payment. Are you familiar with this proposal?
I am.
And then some other incentives potentially for home builders. Is that what I heard? What do you know? What is the general sketch right now?
I'm going to leave the president's speech for the president's speech, but the president is very focused on affordability. When he left office 5 years ago, right? This is a one-year anniversary. The average age of a first-time buyer was 33 years of age. Pretty reasonable. Now it's 40 because Biden had so much inflation, drove the prices up, and interest rates are still too darn high, right? They just, with President Trump finally pushing, right, the agencies to buy $200 billion worth of agency mortgages, the interest rate on mortgages dropped below 6%. And what happened? You had the #1 week of home buyers going to visit new homes and #1 week in decade of refinancing. So that's the idea. The idea is let's bring back the opportunity of demand and let's help young couples get into those first-time homes. The president is on it. He's focused on it. But what he needs, of course, is lower interest rates.
And the 401k thing is indeed the proposal he's working on then.
Well, he's going to talk about it. I've heard it. I'll leave to the president his announcement.
And is there anything in all this for renters? Those that may not be ready to, may not want to buy a home? Is that at all part of the conversation?
I think affordability in America is a key driver of the outcome of this presidency. He's on it. He wants prices down, gas prices down, right? He goes to Venezuela. He now has the ability to drive gas prices down, drive electricity prices down, drive prices lower. We're going to build 100 gigawatts of power in America to drive electricity prices down. So the president's on it, and he understands he's America's president, and he's going to help all Americans on affordability.
31 World Economic Forums. What's your favorite event you ever attended here?
My favorite event has
one you walked away
been,
from and said, that was a fun party, or this was the most important meeting I ever had here?
Well, for all those years that I would come here, I would spend 2 days with my clients, and I would seek 1 day on science, right? And I would spend it with a Nobel Prize winner who would teach me something. And one of the things I learned, I went out with the woman who, remember, she proved, Elizabeth, I think her first name is Elizabeth, that the DNA strands fray at the ends. And she said that comes from stress. And I said, and she said, no, Howard, not your kind of stress. Your stress is chosen stress. The stress she's talking about is when someone cannot get out of it, when their mother's sick and they can't get out of it, and their son is in trouble and they can't get out of it. Those things change your life expectancy. And so what it did is it drove me to try to help change outcomes for people so that they have less stress in their lives. And that was one of the most important things because it stuck with me decades and decades later.